say first, just getting back to the win column. Of course, I know the last few days have been a bit tough, but to see how this team came together as a collective, whether it was the offense, pitching, how do you just kind of describe this team win that you guys had today?
It was a team win. Obviously, it started with Shohei on the mound and 7 innings and throwing a shutout. Got little help with that double play at the end of his outing. Yeah, I mean, I thought he was really good tonight. And offensively, I just thought that situationally, we just had a lot of good intent, good at bats, and certainly to have a couple homers tonight from Espinal and Mookie was helpful.
With Shohei Ohtani, obviously he's been excellent as of late, but what really stood out to you in just this outing today and how he was the stopper, really set the tone for the team?
I think just he was attacking with the fastball. I thought the fastball was really good, had a lot of life. There were a lot of 99s in there and just dominating the hitters. I thought Arise took some really good at-bats against him. But outside of that, I thought he was pretty dominant tonight.
Is there in your mind a longer leash for him as a starting pitcher when he's not in the lineup? Like, for example, like letting him go out for that 7th inning?
Yeah, I think so. Where he was at, if he was hitting, I would have probably pulled the plug right there. But because he wasn't, knowing he had some extra rest going into this one, he'll probably get some extra rest going to the next one. So it's just kind of part of the math, yeah.
David, you see this season transpire, have you seen Shohei kind of really commit to becoming the best starting pitcher he could be?
You see it. We've all seen that transformation, and he wants to be the best pitcher in baseball. And, right now he's doing it. And so you can tell he's hyper-focused on, the preparation part of it, and then obviously the days that he starts the execution.
Obviously last year he looked very good and, just kind of incremental return, but are you seeing anything different outside of just this being like the fresh beginning of the season for what?
I would say the only thing I see is he's not in build-up mode. I think that he has confidence in all of his pitches, and he feels that, he can get hitters out in different ways, where I think last year he was still trying to get his footing on getting back to pitching on some type of routine schedule. And then you have to layer in on, what you have that day to get a hitter out. And I think now he's got confidence in his fastball, his command, the sweeper, the curveball. And he hasn't really used his split. Tonight he didn't use it a whole lot. So I think that's probably the biggest thing.
Dave, now that there's a track record of Shohei dominating like this when he's on the lineup, does it make that decision harder to put him back in the lineup?
No, it's always good to have him in the lineup, but I think that, we're doing it for the right reasons. So that's what, regardless of the result, I think we feel good about it, because we're doing it, for him to give him the best chance to be the best player he can be. But yeah, it doesn't feel good not writing him in the lineup tomorrow. But that's just the way it is, and we've wrapped our heads around that and feel fine about it.
He said he wants to spend more kind of just dialing in what he felt at the plate yesterday. Like, how do you balance that? How do you try to keep that spark kind of going, especially if it's just one game you're kind of basing it on?
Well, I think that tomorrow, to not have to prepare to play a game, to take 5 at bats, he can kind of use tomorrow to stroll in a little bit later. Make sure his body feels good, and then work through some things mechanically to build on, what he found yesterday. So I think that that's helpful. And then, our hope is that, come Friday, then he'll be recovered, and then he'll kind of be able to kind of build off that mechanical part that he found out.
Do you ever think about just the type of pressure that Shohei is under to maintain both at such a high level? Because it seems like anytime one of them falls off a little bit, there are all these questions about whether or not he should give up the 2-way.
I know it's interesting because last year there was a lot of conversations that he shouldn't pitch, and just be a hitter, and so now it's kind of flipped on its head. So I think that I can't imagine what goes through his mind, but I do feel clarity on how we're managing him, and there's no one way to go about it. you're just kind of trying to be fluid and, react and respond to how he's feeling. But yeah, I mean, it seems like, whether he's on the mound, you expect a no-hitter, and then when he's hitting, you expect 2 homers. And so that's kind of his lot in life. It's what he kind of, he did to deserve that.
How happy were you when you see Espinola and then Mookie hit a home run?
I was happy. I was happy. I was happy for Espinal. He's been such a great teammate, and so for him to have a moment to, get us a lead was big. And then just Mookie, wasn't going to play, but wanted to play for the team, and knew we needed him against Ray tonight, and so for him to deliver was great. So I felt good about it.
What have you seen from Mookie's at bats? Because we didn't really know what we get with that quick.
I think the at-bats have been good. I think that the quality has been good. Even that last at-bat, he lines out to Adames, and so he's seen it well. You don't know what to expect because he had 2 rehab assignments or 2 rehab games. And then, but again, just getting him back in there, it just makes the lineup, look a lot better.
I know you described kind of Ohtani as being kind of very polite, accepting of all these decisions whenever you kept him out of lineup. That said, do you have any sense of how he actually feels about that? And if he doesn't like it, does that matter at all?
I think he appreciates it. It does matter to some extent, but I do think that, when I see him and how his body is responding and dragging a little bit, I think that, most times it's best to just take it out of the player's hands. And I do think that we have a good enough relationship that he understands I'm doing this, for him and the team. So, yeah, I don't think that even if he probably disagreed with it, I still think it's the best, process right now.
Dave, he said in the past he loves to pitch, but how much do you think that he loves to compete, especially with all those emotions that he shows when he's out there on the mound?
Like I've said it for a long time, he's a different person when he's pitching, and I think he wants to win the Cy Young. I think that helps the Dodgers too in 2026. So, yeah, when he's pitching, I just sort of let him go, and he's in his zone, and that's a good thing. You can see it when he's coming off the field, and he's just on the attack.
He feels more responsibility to pitch well and struggling offensively.
Yeah, I do. I do. He's in there. He's trying to put up numbers offensively, and when he's not right, it's hard as a hitter when you're scuffling and you're not feeling well. But as a pitcher, you have the control of the game, and so certainly our team scuffling, and he took it upon himself to put an end to this losing streak.
He talks about just when his plan is for tomorrow and trying to dial in on a few things. How much do you want him to just kind of take a step back and relax and watch a baseball game? Yes, he's a part of the game plan and he'd be late in the game, but do you want him not to be spending the day in the cage doing too much work in there? Do you want him to kind of balance just the mental side of that, of relaxing?
Yeah. It's hard to quantify that part of the mental part of it and what it does for a player. But I would love to see him, in the dugout for the first few innings and kind of hanging out. And then as he's watching and kind of slowly get into his progression to get ready potentially for an at-bat. But yeah, the value of just watching a ball game, it's important. When he relaxes, he relaxes. So probably not because he wants to be in there, but I think he still, I think he knows it's best for him.
Any concern with the Tucker's foot?
No concern. I know that it hit him in the same spot as it did the other night. So, but he'll be in there tomorrow, and the trainer came in and said that, just kind of treated it up a little bit, but he'll be good to go tomorrow.